Operation Encore is a 501c nonprofit that is helping veterans turn into rock stars every single day. You can learn more about what Operation Encore is doing by going over to their website at www.operationencore.org. That is www.operationencore.org. If you can give them a hand, just click that little donate button or follow all of their social medias and learn exactly what they are doing to change the lives of our veterans every single day. Hey, welcome everybody to Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room. Man, oh man, you know, our show has spread and we're no longer just veteran discussing. And today we've got a topic that I have been looking forward to because I love podcasting. So today we have got I'm going to mess up his last name, Michael Delia. And he can punish me and put me in the corner afterwards. Michael is currently the CEO of Evergreen Podcast, a podcast network and production company. Under his leadership, the company has grown from 4 original podcasts in 2017 to now producing and distributing over 250 plus podcasts that have been listened to in over 180 countries. Evergreen Podcast is on target for over 20 million podcast downloads globally. Let's bring on Michael. What is going on?
Donald, how are you this evening?
Man, I apologize. I bet I messed up your name tremendously.
Well, there's a lot of vowels in my last name.
There is, man.
Yeah, it's Delia, and
okay.
And I live in Cleveland, Ohio, right now. The very interesting thing about Cleveland is on the east side of Cleveland, a lot of Italians. I mean, just a ton of Italians.
Mm-hmm.
Little Italy, Garfield Heights, Mayfield Heights, all Italian. And so they always get it. Delia, they know. West side of Cleveland, a lot of Puerto Ricans. They call me De La Hoya. and of course, I answer to both. I'm fan friendly. That's so no worries on the name. Everybody trips over it.
Man, you saying you're from Cleveland? That brings up from our earlier conversation. Are you actually a Bengals fan living in Cleveland?
Well, I grew up in Dayton, which is slightly north of Cincinnati. So I grew up during the Big Red Machine, and Ken Anderson. We talked about Ken while I was still in the green room, and Boomer Esiason, and they had Jack Thompson too, the throwing Samoan.
Yeah.
And nonetheless, I grew up a Bengals fan. And that is still true. That franchise had gone through, let's be frank, some really rough times.
Yes, they have.
And I just thank God they got Joe Burrow, because that is a true franchise quarterback. Now, if they can keep him healthy, it's another question entirely. But he's got the talent. I mean, the dude is just a rock solid quarterback.
Yeah, and with Chase on the other end of that, I mean, yeah, man. And I'm not gonna lie. When they went to the Super Bowl a few years ago, I was like, thank God we're not playing the 49ers. And we still lost, but that's all right.
Yeah, but 3 of the closest games in Super Bowl history, right? They're all one-score games. Yeah. I mean, you talk about bad luck. I mean, you'd think you'd be on one of those, on the winning side of one of those.
Well, I still think we would have won the second one with Boomer had Crumry not got his leg broke there in the first quarter. I think we were close enough. I think he would have made the difference.
Crumry was overhyped in that particular moment. You know what I'm saying? He was a madman. Crumry. Holy Toledo!
He was the leading tackler for the Bengals that year.
As a nose guard.
Yeah. He was a beast, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Crumry came from Nebraska. I believe he played for University of Nebraska. I think so. There was a couple rookies that year, and I think he was one of them that came from Nebraska.
We might have to look that up.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So yes, a lot of great Bengal memories, a lot of great red. My grandfather owned a sporting goods store.
Mm-hmm.
So he had tickets to University. We were in Dayton, so University of Dayton basketball, but also Cincinnati Reds, Cincinnati Bengals for many, many years.
Yeah.
Lower Bowl. It was always just fun to hit the blue seats back in the day with Riverfront Stadium.
Yep.
To see those games.
Yeah. That's on my bucket list. I want to go to a Bengals home game where I at least ain't going to be threatened.
Well, for sure. It's a different stadium now, Paul Brown Stadium. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, man, tell everybody a little bit about we know you came from Dayton there. Where did podcasting start for you?
Well, it was not a life mission, I have to be honest with you. Although I had my background is in corporate finance, investment banking, venture capital, buying and selling companies. I had owned a few tech companies, which we sold. Nothing, no home runs, singles, doubles, but to be, I've enjoyed a very good life, and I'm very thankful with my wife and kid that we've been able to do that.
Yeah.
I just sold a tech company, sitting on the beach, the proverbial beach. I wasn't doing anything, and my wife's an attorney. She was a partner in a law firm. She's recently joined a big construction company as their in-house counsel. But yeah, lawyers are typically a bit more conservative than entrepreneurs. And you should really start doing something. And I think that put something into the ether, because I got a call a few days later from a friend of mine, also in the tech space. He was like, "Hey, listen, I just interviewed for this job. It's a podcasting network." And I told him, "Hey, I'm not the guy, but I know the guy, and you're the guy, and you have to call." The founder, it was a woman named Joan Andrews. And so Joan is our founder. She also has a family office who's been the primary funder for the company. So she had started a podcast network called the Front Porch People. So family-friendly content, which we're big proponents of, and generally in literature, movies, music. She wanted to have just as a means of augmenting education, where this content was always evergreen, which is a key thing to keep in mind, because that's what the company's called now. The second component of her vision was that podcasting to her was like something to be shared. And when she heard a good podcast, she would gather the family around, like in the old radio days where everyone had their radio sitting in the corner and the whole family was there. And here's some insight into Joan. Her 50th birthday, her family came to her house. She lives very close to me. We're practically neighbors. And she had an old radio serial from like the 1930s. Like this old murder mystery that they had done on radio, and the whole family had parts. And they sat around and they did this play on her birthday. That's just brilliant. I thought
it is
great.
Yeah.
But we quickly found out that podcasting is not a group aesthetic. It's a pretty individual endeavor. And so, but we liked the evergreen content angle. So we switched it up about 18 months in from Front Porch People to Evergreen Podcast, a little bit more host centric, captivating hosts like yourself who've got an angle, who are great interviewers, and had a specialty domain or genre. So, we've grown from those 4 original shows. I think we did 18,000 downloads our first year. And brother, I was struggling to figure out what to do with this company. I come from the tech side. Now I know how to build tech companies and grow them. Media is a little different, different metrics.
Yes.
But we went from that first year, 4 shows, 18,000 downloads, to last year we did about, on December 31st, we did about 325 different show titles, almost 31 million downloads.
Wow.
And I think this year will be 46 to 48 million, hopefully more, but I think that's where we're going to go. So it's been just a rocket ship of growth. And that's where a lot of my expertise comes in, is like trying to manage that growth, because it has been pretty substantial, and it can be destabilizing. Growth always highlights your weaknesses, always.
Yep.
And we've got them, just like every other company. If any company tells you they don't have weaknesses, they're absolutely not telling the truth. But
you are absolutely right.
yeah, but everyone's got them, and they're different. It fades in and out. Like a couple years ago, it was account management. Last year it was billing. Like you'd think you'd want to start the process of getting paid, but we didn't have the right team in place, and so now it's getting our financial records in the proper format so that we can go out and raise additional capital. Joan has been a fantastic investor, fantastic partner. The key executives do own a part of the business, which I think is important too. So we're all aligned as to where we want to go and how we want to get there. But to grow this even more, we're just going to need to feed the slot machine, so to speak. And we're going to need, I think, other investors. So that's our next leap of faith. So this year we've already acquired one other smaller podcast network. Tonight we agreed we're setting it in stone. We're actually buying a second one, a pretty sizable one, our largest one ever that we've done, which almost will make us double,
Yeah.
Are you ready to experience the power of military community right from the comfort of your living room? Introducing Military United Podcast Streams, now available on the Roku channel. Get ready to dive into a world of incredible stories, inspiring discussions, and the best entertainment the military community has to offer. With our veteran podcast host, you'll gain insights into the experiences that have shaped our heroes. And that's not all. We've got a lineup of talented veteran musicians playing rock, country, and more. Get ready to rock out with these incredible artists who have served our country and are now ready to entertain you with their soulful tunes. But wait, there's more. We've also got veteran comedians who will have you in stitches with their hilarious and relatable stories. Laughter is the best medicine, and these brave men and women know how to deliver it. So gather your loved ones, grab some popcorn, and prepare for an unforgettable journey into the world of military podcast, music, and comedy. With Military United Podcast Streams now on Roku, you can access all this incredible content with just a few clicks of a button. Military United Podcast Streams on Roku channel. It's time to honor, entertain, and celebrate the incredible men and women who have served our country. Join us today and experience the power of the military community like never before.
And so that's going to close, I think, on the 28th of the 1st. That's going to bring, and what's really great about this network is we're going back to our roots. It's faith-based, family-based programming. It'll be its own standalone. Evergreen, we keep clean. There's certain things we have an editorial policy, but occasionally people curse, right? I mean, it's, and there's some issues that are challenging to talk about sometimes, especially on some of our more, not necessarily politically driven shows, but where they've got some talking heads that are clearly on the political side of things.
Right. Yeah.
And we've got a Warriors in Their Own Words show too, which you'd mentioned that, your military radio and what you're doing with our veterans, which I think is great. But we have a show too called Warriors in Their Own Words, where they're talking through, their time from World War I to Iraq and Afghanistan. We just did a recent show on January 6th too, which from a veteran's perspective, which was just really insightful. But we don't want to cross-pollinate Evergreen shows on this new network.
Right.
We really want to keep it directed towards faith-based and family-based shows and programming. So it's going to be a whole new world for us once we get this, transaction complete. But like I said, I had not been in the podcasting industry, but a quick footnote, Donald, then I'll pause because I feel like I'm talking too much. But a quick footnote was I was picked. So the 2016 Republican convention was in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And I had actually worked at City Hall a number of years ago. So I've always been of a mindset that I want to give. So I wanted to be in government, and I worked for 2 mayors in Cleveland and did, I hope, a lot of good stuff. And a friend of mine was working the RNC route, and he was like, "Hey, man, you've got a great voice. Why don't you be the voice of the RNC podcast?" But talking about Cleveland business people, men and women, entrepreneurs, and we'll give it. So I did the official RNC Cleveland 2016 podcast. That was my only knowledge base of podcasting. And then to get selected a couple years later to start running a podcast network. Like, what's your resume for podcasting? Well, I did a show.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's going to help you run a network, but okay. So, but like I said, we've been real fortunate. We got a great, Jones let me build a pretty strong team, and the podcasting world's gone through a lot of change in the last 12 to 18 months. And I think if we come out of it in the next year or so, where we're 80 million, 100 million in downloads, I think we'll have a great, basis for success in the future. And that's where we're going to go.
Yeah. It's funny. There's a lot of things that's in common. You guys said that you guys are right at like 31 million in downloads. Well, there's a 3 in mine too. I mean, it's just 3, but there's that similarity that's running real close.
It's only going to go up, brother. Only going to go up, right?
That's it, man. Yeah, no, on the real though, it was similar for me in one aspect too. I used to say this all the time. I used to say that being a content creator was millennial panhandling. That's what I used to call it.
I'm going to steal that line, Donovan. My whole staff is millennials. They'll love that.
And then I started doing it, and I'm like, wow, this really is work, man. There's a lot of stuff that you got to know. So
it is. Well, listen, it's a challenging role. I mean, you're booking guests, you're recording, you're editing, you're hosting, you're putting out through a distribution platform. You're trying to sell sponsorships and ads too, I would imagine.
Yep.
You've done all this, that video in the beginning. You did all that. When a show gets on the network with us, we tend to take most of that away from them. And so we have 3 types of podcasts on the network. I should probably start there. We have our own original content that we produce, we own. And we've been very successful of growing that particular content. And then we have branded content where someone would hire us to do their production work for them. We get paid for that. Those are great gigs. We've done Chipotle, Metro Health, some Storyworth.com, some really interesting, brands and partners over the year. NPR, I keep on forgetting about NPR, but I always think, oh my gosh, they have their own production studios. Why would NPR want to work with us? But
yeah,
I think it speaks to the level of work that we do. And then finally, we have partner podcasts who are the independent podcaster like yourself looking for a home. They've got some traffic. In the early days, it was like, oh, well, I got a podcast. You have a podcast, you're on the network. I mean, it was pretty, we just needed shows.
Right.
As we've grown, it's really interesting how we've continued to vet shows, because we got to make them economically viable. Which is a hard thing to coordinate with my philosophy, which is everyone has a story to tell. Everybody.
Yep.
And I want to hear those stories. And it's grassroots. That's what makes podcasting so unique and fundamentally engaging. We were talking about Joe Rogan again when I was in the green room, and there's only one Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But that guy can get stories out of people. And the same is true of like Stern. I mean, Stern had that gift of getting people in the early days to talk about more Randy and sundry, like off color and off, a little bit more risque type content. But it's interesting to see how Stern has really guided himself into being a fantastic interviewer, just fantastic. And Rogan's got that too. I don't know what it is, but Rogan just gets people to chat. And that's what makes a good podcaster is you engaging me and getting me to tell my story for the world. That's a powerful tool to have.
And I think, they both have the same quality. And I think that is the key is I picture both of them. What you get on the air would be the same as what you get if you were standing at a bar having a drink with them. You know, they're authentic, they're real, and people relate to that.
There is an authenticity there for sure. And what's fascinating is they're on. I think both personally behind the scenes would be just great people to
Yeah.
to hang out with. But Stern tilts left, in a lot of respects.
Right.
Rogan tilts right. But somehow people just gravitate to him. Yeah, and not from that side. It's like everybody. I think a lot of people just want to hear what they want to say and see if it's controversial, and then spit something back out on social media towards them. But they.
Have you ever wondered how you can help out the show? Well, that is very simple. You can help us out by going to www.twodrunkdudesinAgunroom.com. That is www.twodrunkdudesinAgunroom.com. There's many ways you can help us by listening to the show, supporting the show, liking, sharing, and everything else that comes along with social media. But one of our biggest goals is to help build the nonprofit Heroes Voice Media Foundation. This is a foundation that has decided to start celebrating courage and amplifying heroes. Find your voice with Heroes Voice Media Foundation.
They are both intellectually curious, which is the key thing, right?
Yep.
They're interested in you. You may say something during an interview and they catch on to the rabbit hole. They both go down the rabbit hole because they're interested in things.
Yep.
Outcomes, I'll leave that up to the listener, but you're engaged, and that's the important thing. And the storytelling for me is the most important thing. I love a good yarn. I've grown up with people who could tell great stories from the very beginning.
Yeah.
From, my childhood till now. And I hang out with people who tell just from start to finish great stories, most of which you probably could not put on a show.
Well, let me tell you, having seen veterans on this show,
I'm sure.
I wonder how I'm still on some of the networks, but
well, you're doing God's work because, on the veteran side of things, man, I mean, these are individuals who have just sacrificed so much, and they need their stories to be heard.
Yeah.
The ecstasy and the pain, and that's important, man. It's like it's therapy in a lot of respects.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I was saying, that's exactly what kept me going. When my co-host dropped off, I decided, well, I'll just do it by myself. And then I tried being a solo, no guest. Man, I couldn't do that. My hat's off to anybody that can do that.
That's a lot of time to fill.
Yeah, and you get yourself rambling, and you're like, I wouldn't even listen to this crap, and I'm sitting here. And so that's when I started looking for guests, because I had to have somebody that I fed off, and luckily I haven't had too many guests that were like, oh my God, I can't wait till this is over. Most of the people I searched out
There are
for,
a few, right? I mean, that has happened.
I mean, I've been duped once, and that's why I quit. I don't live stream anymore. I pre-record because, I thought we were going to talk about one thing, and it turned out to be a Ponzi scheme type sale. And I refuse to try to put veterans in front of that. There's a lot of people. I got a lot of friends and fellow soldiers that watch the show. And if they see me talking about it, I still have to kind of act like I'm interested. But, in my head, I was thinking, this is some bull crap, man. And afterwards, I had one guest that was on my show. He was talking to this person, and I had to contact him afterwards. I said, look, I think this is a witch hunt, man. After the show was over with, they wanted me to be a part of it, and every guest I signed on, they would be underneath me, and I'd make money off. And I said, man, I have a full-time job. I don't care about the money. I'm not selling it to veterans, And so I quit live streaming. The only place it goes to is my website. And then I record, download it, and edit and everything. And then I re-upload it back to YouTube and all the other places. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to vet things, man. It's hard to vet.
Yeah.
you trust people. I naturally trust people. And so it's shame on me if,
Yeah.
I give you access to something like that.
Yeah. And, for me, I was always small potatoes, until recently. I've never had anybody reach out to me to kind of be in the negative side, have alternative. I've had a few people that act like they were 501Cs that have tried to reach out to me. And after doing some vetting, I found out they were just scam artists, and stuff like that. And that would just happen recently. That happened as the radio station started growing. Then they just kind of brought them out of the network. And we haven't been around very long. I mean, the radio station started May 1st of last year. So a lot has happened from May 1st to now. My podcast has been around since 2021. So, but the radio station started May 1st of last year, and it has grown. And
That's
just
great.
like you said, I had to slow it down because I couldn't keep up with it. I finally hired a graphic designer. She's one of my soldiers. I didn't know she had a college degree in it. So I hired her. She now manages my websites. But up to that point, I did all my websites. I've started learning how to code to make apps because I was running into issues with trying to get the apps online for people to be able to listen to the radio station. So I have got a full degree, probably a master's degree in YouTube. I'm not going to lie.
And web design too, man. I mean, it's a lot. The independent podcasters, a lot on their plates. And then, we hear all the times, like, how do I grow the show? I've been doing this forever. And, discoverability is very hard. It's challenging. We struggle with it too. Listen, everyone in their portfolio's got shows that you think are going to be big hits, and they don't pick up an audience at all. And it's sad. And then you got to make that business decision. Like, do we want to continue, or do we want to, move on to greener pastures? And so I feel for you, man. I hear these stories all the time, but here's the saving grace. But you're still doing the show, right?
Oh yeah.
You're out there talking with people.
Listeners. So
yeah,
I've always said, I don't care if one person listens or 10,000 people listen. I really don't. Now my show is designed just to lead other podcasters. I'll leave the fame and glory to them. Maybe one of them will be the next Rogan. It don't matter to me. For me, it's about what we're building and the network of people that we're talking to, and I think that's more important because I've gotten out of the show what I needed. So wherever the show goes, it goes. As long as it stays leading veterans, I'm good with it. And so to me, that is the biggest and most important thing, is to have my show at least be leading other veterans on our network, Military United podcast streams. And as long as I can continue to be the right example for them, I'm good with that because that's all I care about.
Listen, being the advocate and the voice of your veteran brethren, man, that's very important. So like I said, I applaud you for doing that type of work.
Yeah. If it was about, growing the show to that size where I was trying to make money, I would have rebranded it. I would have changed the name because I catch a lot of slack for the name. I get more mail in my social media telling me what kind of idiot I am because of the name. They don't watch the show. They see the name. They assume that we're talking about nothing but guns and alcohol. And like I said, if I was trying to grow the show, I would have just rebranded it to something more friendly. This Two Drunk Dudes doesn't actually call out for a church to sponsor us or something. There's not too many that were, maybe we could relate to the distilleries, but then they see the GunRoom and they're like, oh, we don't want our alcohol associated with guns. And yeah, so, but the one sponsor we do have is through the radio station. Actually, I mean, they're the ones that help me navigate all the legality of playing people's music. I had to turn it into a business. I had to get licensed through ASCAP and BMI, and we have to pay our royalties just like everybody else does. And, there's requirements, and I didn't know any about it. I was literally just like, man, it sucks that these guys are trying to get paid and do this for a living. And they're fighting Spotify and everybody else, like all the podcasting people do, trying to get their shit seen. And for me, it didn't matter because I like I said, I put in 60 hours a week at work. I have a job. But these guys, that's how they're paying their bills. So I just like one day said, you know what you should do? You should start a radio station and just play their music. And I don't know, it was like Facebook heard me say it, and I seen this ad that said, start your radio station for $39.95. And so I said, well, that's what I'm going to do. And I paid for it, and I started it up and started asking veterans for music. And then I learned real quick that there's copyright problems and stuff like that. Even though the artists are telling you can play their music, if they have a pro performing performing arts right organization or something like that, I think is what it's called. But if they're with BMI or ASCAP, it don't matter if the artist tells you can play it, they still want their money too. So
everybody wants their money.
Yep. So, but yeah, Operation Encore sponsored me. They helped me get some of the licensing. So they pay me a year and I run ads for them. But that's the only sponsorship I got. On the radio station, I created some commercials for 501Cs, but I don't charge them anything. They're all free. It's about just trying to get the mom and pop guy, because they don't have no advertising budget. They spend every dime they got into programs for whatever it is that they're going for. They're not like the VA where they got an abundance of money. But so I mean, like I said, I don't charge them. It's good advertisement. It makes it more legit. Seems like a real radio station. We got some DJs now. We're adding DJs to it to have their own little show. They're veterans too. So it's going in the right direction, but like I said, I had to slow it down because I couldn't keep up with it. The infrastructure wasn't there to support it, and that kind of slowed people's excitement about it because it kind of just got put in the corner over here. And then it allowed me to focus more on building the Roku channel and the websites and stuff that we had going. And so once all that was done, now we're back to, I'm getting on podcasts, talking about it again and getting people back to watching. And now that the infrastructure is there, we have some big goals. So it is like you said, we're going to have to raise some good sized money, but I'm not going to quit until I see a program called the VMAs. I want to see the Veteran Music Awards, and I want to see all these veterans that succeeded and made it, your George Straits and people like that are served, but they're now big in the industry. I want them to host it. And I want these independent guys that are, I got artists that are living in vans, driving around the United States, just playing from gig to gig, trying to make it. And, they're starting 15 years behind their counterparts because they gave 15 years of their life to the military. And you're not going to have a successful music career when you're going from place to place and deployments and everything else. It's just not going to happen.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our big goal is we want the VMAs. There's a few sponsors that are interested in helping us with that. Operation Encore is also helping us with that as well. But, it'll be on TV one day and in Nashville. I have
no doubt about it. It's going to happen.
So I know I kind of got a little off topic there. We'll bring it back to so podcasting, right? The guys, if somebody wanted to get their show on a network and they wanted to go to that next level, and they were taking it serious, we're going to say that they went ahead and bought the right equipment. They did everything they could for sound and they're trying to advertise. What is the big thing that you think they should focus on when we talk stats? Because I think all the people that are with us, they get so wrapped up in download numbers that they're not really looking at stats in a way to measure engagement. Are people just downloading, listening to your intro and going about their day, or are they there halfway through the show? What would you say for you guys? I mean, I know you guys with all the podcasts you have on your network, I'm sure you guys pay attention to stats and look to make determination of who you're going to keep and what's working or what's not working?
Yeah, ultimately, it's how many downloads you get in a monthly period, because that's driving a lot of CPM rates on the advertising side. We take a little different approach. We're really trying to get sponsorships.
Okay.
So we are actually out targeting brands directly, and I can give you some evolution as to why we're doing this. But the CPM rate, say you got a show doing 10,000 downloads a month, you have a sponsor who's like, all right, for every 1,000, we'll strike you a check for $30. So a CPM means for every 1,000 downloads, I'm going to give you $30. Yeah,
Okay.
just pick a number. A 10,000 show, 10,000 download show, that's only $300.
Right.
Right. The economics are built in against you in the podcasting trade.
Yep.
And you use the same metrics in radio. So you, Donald, you know these sort of metrics. We're like, the hell with this. Let's sell more sponsorships. So we really gauge brands. We talk with the hosts. What are your ideal brands? Who do you want us to talk to on your behalf? And we had a show that was like, I would really like to get into the movie theaters. I think they would, they got dollars. They want people to get back to the movie theaters, and I think they'd be willing to spend. So we did a direct target, and we've got, pretty sophisticated databases that we've, again, our investors been very generous to let us, buy into.
Yeah.
And we ended up with Regal Cinema out in, we didn't know anyone from Regal.
Yeah.
Found an email, contacted the person. Like, yeah, we've been thinking about doing podcast advertising. We've never done it. We showed them our portfolio of movie and entertainment shows. And they ended up with two of our shows. One is Next Best Picture, and the second one is Sleepover Cinema. And which I thought that was a unique pick. That's not the show I would have picked. I love the show. It's two young ladies, millennials, talking about when they were growing up, the teenage rom-coms that they used to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're getting deeper and deeper into like my time period in the 70s and 80s when they were teen rom-coms too. It's a great show, but we didn't think it was going to drive audience for them. And it turns out that out of the shows, this was the one that drove the most revenue back to Regal. So it just goes to show you never know. But Regal then, gave us, we're talking mid 5 figures to advertise, to have the sponsorship. And now we're talking about a much larger opportunity with NetSuite. With Regal. And that's where we want to go. We want to start driving sponsorship dollars because it's a bigger margin.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And it's a bigger share. And also we part of the talk or discussion with the hosts, like Next Best Picture is doing 100,000 plus downloads a month. Sleepover Cinema might be doing 10 to 15,000. It's a much smaller show. We want them to take some of those dollars from the sponsorship and plow it back into marketing. And we've been using, I will say this, and I'm sure you've been contacted, Donald, there's 10,000 people doing podcast promotion on LinkedIn and on Facebook.
Yeah.
And you immediately like, all right, this isn't, a clickbait farm. And, and we get penalized when shows use those types of when they engage in that type of activity, we get the network gets dinged. And this has happened to us in the past. Someone like, I think naively, innocently, like, I want more promotion for my show, so I'll spend $100, $200. It's not good. There are pre-approved audience engagement tools, Mopod being one of them, a Trailergram being another. And depending on your budget, you're going to slot in with one of those technology tools. Moped is a little bit more costly. It might have a deeper engine, and those programs are going to run longer to drive traffic to your site or to your show. Trailergram is a lower cost of entry, and they're spikes, they're audience spikes, but they're legit, and that's what we're going for. They have to be what we call IAB compliant. So the Internet Advertising Bureau sets the standard for what a listen or a download is, and we just have to comply with that. So we don't want Megaphone to get dinged because these aren't legitimate downloads. So,
right.
But we do have a formula. The key thing is there's two things for success, I think, in a podcast, right? Cadence. If you're doing a weekly show, you do a weekly show. If you're doing a bi-weekly show, you do a bi-weekly. A monthly, you do a monthly. And if you're on vacation, make sure that you got an old show filling in that RSS feed. The second thing is longevity. The more you're out doing your podcast, the better chance you have of driving an audience, right? And once we establish those two things and you keep that in play, from a network perspective, we're looking at filling our genre spots. So we've got 16. They're pretty standard, right? Mm-hmm. Sports, comedy, movies, entertainment, health and wellness, history, which is a big one for us, music. And we are just trying to drive as many shows into those genres that have some semblance of an audience. Like I said, in the early days, you get a pulse and a podcast, you're probably going to get on. Now you probably need a minimum of 2,500 downloads a month, maybe a little bit more depending on the genre. If you're in business, there's 100,000 different business podcasts. They generally don't drive a lot of traffic, generally. So we'll add, it'll be a lower hurdle for the business one if we like it to get onto the network. If you're a history, if you're not doing 10, 15,000 a month, you're probably not going to get on because we just need a bigger critical. The history is such a driving force. You need bigger shows to move the needle, doing channel buys or network buys, just using history as a genre. So, we're trying to aggregate as many downloads into a genre as possible on a monthly basis to drive the CPM rate and then to drive sponsorships.
Yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense because I think that's what everybody starting out relates to. They don't think about other ways of making money. They think, when do I get sponsors? When can I get subscriptions? And they look at those higher margin things.
They do, but you really got to have the baseline of the show, the economics there to deliver, even to the point where if you're doing a smaller show, a typical show for us is 45 minutes.
Yep.
And it's probably got 5 ad spots in it, 2 pre-roll, 2 mid-roll, and a post. Your pre's are going to be $18 to $22 CPM market rate. Your mid-rolls, 22 to 28, somewhere in there per spot. And your post, you could probably give that away, but let's say $8 to $10. We suggest, all right, get onto a network, a lower, your Podbeans and, those that are for independent podcasters, and use their advertising platform to get digital ad insertion. So the host isn't reading the ad. Yeah. If you and I listen to that podcast, you and I may get different ads because they're digitally inserted.
Yep.
And they're different on demographic information and detail. So I may see a Budweiser ad. You might get, a food service, that the monthly food programs are.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but we then, as you're doing your media kit, use the ads that have been on your show from the advertising platform of your podcast as logos on your media kit. Like, I've had these sponsors.
I never thought about that.
But that's how you build, because then the advertiser or the sponsor is going to look like, oh, they had Toyota on there and they had Budweiser. Like, this little show is a dynamo because they've had these brands, and it's the ad network that's behind your distribution and hosting platform. But it's legit. The ad was on there. We're not saying it wasn't. It wasn't a real sponsorship. It was just a digital ad insertion. And we use that then to translate to the bigger brands, because every one of our shows gets a sales sheet, and we list past advertisers on there as it really is positioning, marketing positioning. So that's a little tool of trade you and your listeners might want to use, in the future as you're kind of going out, is, use those to begin with. And even the lower end shows are going to do the codes. So you're doing affiliate marketing.
Yep.
And that's legit. If you can drive traffic to them, and they're putting an ad on your show, and you got your own personal code for your show that you can push it out, do the host reads for them too.
Yep.
And use that logo then moving forward. Like these are the advertisers that have sponsored us, because that's how you start. And then of course you build up to the bigger sponsorships. And then, if you're really rocket fuel, you got a little, magic in the bottle, you end up like Rogan and you get $250 million.
Yeah. Well, I'm still waiting. I did reach out to him to see if he'd like to be on the old Two Drunk Dudes in a GunRoom show. I'm thinking maybe it went to spam or something, but I keep checking. I haven't got a response back yet.
If his marketing people were really astute, they would say yes, because he's connecting with Americana when he's doing things like that. You know what I mean? Even if for 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have reached out to some bigger people in my network that I was kind of disappointed that I didn't get a response. One being Lieutenant, what is his name? Murphy, the guy from The Lone Survivor.
Yes.
Movie. So the unit I was in was the aircraft that flew the SEALs in to try to rescue them. And
really?
shot down. Yep. So a couple of my buddies, I just left Afghanistan 2 weeks before that happened. And Major Reich, who was the flight commander on that flight, he kind of played a joke on our battalion commander, and they all taped him up and set him up by the flagpole right before we flew out. And so to get even, our battalion commander took his Jeep and put it up on blocks and had us TP it. And he mailed his Jeep tires to him in Afghanistan. And shortly after, that's when that mission happened, and they were killed. Operation Encore is a 501c nonprofit that is helping veterans turn into rock stars every single day. You can learn more about what Operation Encore is doing by going over to their website at www.operationencore.org. That is www.operationencore.org. If you can give them a hand, just click that little donate button or follow all of their social medias and learn exactly what they are doing to change the lives of our veterans every single day. There was a lot of questions asked about why his Jeep tires was in his hooch in Afghanistan and why his vehicle had been vandalized. But and so I reached out to him because he's got a big book about Operation Red Wing and everything else that happened, plus the his story as being the lone survivor. And no response. And I thought that was kind of jacked up because I definitely had a lot of questions. The movie's not always exactly in the back briefing we got from our end. We had to listen to the black box and everything from the wreckage and all that stuff. And so there were some things that didn't line up,
right?
And even if it was off there, some things I wanted to ask him, and he didn't respond. So that one kind of hurt. But the rest of them, I sent out mostly as jokes. Rogan being one of them. I've sent out invites to. Let's see, who else have I kind of reached out to? All the distilleries, the main advertising guys. I'm still trying to get Walker's K, my favorite bourbon. They could sponsor me and just send me one bottle because shipping is horrendous, and the bottle's only $35 and I paid the same amount for shipping. So
yeah, but it's going to happen, man. It's going to happen. I mean, you just keep at it. The consistency is the key. It is always the key.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I noticed you got some bottles back there. You got SoCo, I think, up there on the shelf.
Yep, that was
which is an underrated sipping whiskey.
Yep, that's my guest bourbon.
Is it? Yeah, you give the SoCo to the guest, and you're drinking the 20-year-old in the background. And I think he had Crown Royal on a different shop. Let me tell you, I was always a snob on the Canadian whiskeys, and I'm drinking an Irish whiskey tonight. I'm drinking some 12-year-old Redbreast, but the Canadian, not so much Canadian Club. That's a bit of a well drink, but Crown Royal is spectacular.
Yeah.
It's like a gateway whiskey to all other whiskeys because it's so smooth. The blended whiskeys, I know people frown on them, but they're delicious. Yeah. Absolutely delicious.
Oh, I just had some Crown Royal XO that was on sale. Got a hell of a deal. It was $30 for it. I didn't know much about the 18 year Crown. Otherwise, I would have bought that too. I didn't know it's normally over $100 a bottle. They had it on sale for $65. Had I known that, I would have bought it. But man, it was amazing. I mean, it was way better than just regular Crown Royal. And my wife likes some of the flavored ones, the apple and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, those are very popular. The vanilla.
Yep.
The peach.
But I'm more of a bourbon guy. I love different bourbons. I like the stories behind them. They all have a place that they originated from, and it's kind of interesting to hear. I make my own. I got a buddy of mine that, for whatever reason, he makes great moonshine. I don't understand it, but he cannot sell the middle part of his run. They all want this 130 proof gasoline to pour down their throat. And so he sells me the middle part of their run, which is about 90, 95 proof. And I get it for $60 for a gallon and a half. And then I have an oak barrel that's charred, and I make my own bourbon just to play with. And I give it away when I go to events to other veterans. I'll pour them in little pint bottles and give each person.
Oh, that's great, man. That's awesome.
But it's fun. I enjoy doing it. And, for $60 for a gallon and a half of it, man, you just can't go wrong.
Plus, listen, digging into that barrel. I mean, there's science to that.
Yeah.
That I respect. I've never done that before. I do have friends who make their own liquor, but you getting in there playing mad scientist, I think it's just fantastic. Crafting your own. You're probably changing the recipe a little bit every time.
Yep. This next one's going to have a little bit of vanilla in it. I'm going to buy some actual real vanilla, not the extract, but and put some of that in there. I'm going to try it out and see. The cool thing about having gallon and a half size bottles is 3 to 4 months is similar to about 3 years in a big barrel. So you don't have to wait forever either.
Yeah, it's concentrated, right? Smaller batches. Yeah, getting a lot more flavor profile.
Yep. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. I love bourbon is kind of flown through the military. A lot of military guys are bourbon guys, so it's a good talking point when you're at some of these events that we do as well. And you can relate to people. You give them a few drinks, and next thing you know, they've relaxed, and you can just have a really good conversation. And that's the other thing I tell people, man. Just because of the name, you don't have to come on my show and drink. You can drink water. It don't matter to me. It's not about the alcohol. And I get a lot of people that think that they have to drink because of the title. And, I had one guy tell me, he said, I can't believe what you're doing. He said, don't you know that alcohol is a depressant and veterans are already depressed? I said, holy crap. I always thought they were talking about your nervous system. I did not know that alcohol made you depressed. But that's the kind of mail I get. I get it all the time, So I just laugh. It's funny.
There's the interesting thing, and I think you hit this point, was I'm a rye person, but regardless, the whiskey, the rye, the bourbon, it gets people talking. Again, I'm fascinated by conversation.
Me too. Yep.
I really am. And what people's perspective, whether I agree with it or not,
Yeah.
I am fascinated by why people say the things they do. And as I've aged a little bit, my friends have gotten a little bit more weathered and wise, perhaps. I think that bourbon, that the American tradition, right, of a whiskey,
Yeah.
it just provokes some conversation I never thought I would have
Yeah.
with, business partners or friends. But for the vet, just getting them to just pull that wall down a little bit so you can talk heart to heart. That's got to be, I'm sure they're gratified and they're very thankful for it. You know what I mean?
I mean, there's a reason why, bourbon is not designed to drink and get drunk by yourself. It is
It's not a mass quantity thing. It's not vodka.
Yeah, it's a sharing liquor. It's two people sitting down,
That's
having
right.
one or two drinks and having conversation. That's what it's designed for. It's a sipping whiskey, and for people to drink, I just went through a whole bottle of Buffalo Trace. I'm just like, I'm sorry, because in Missouri we struggle to get that stuff. It's hard.
And they're drinking. It's like, dude, that's not, that should be shared and savored. You can't just drink it all in one.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
My early days were wasted on bad drinking. You know what I mean? Like
Korean beer. I spent a year over there. Oh,
that is funny.
Yeah. It's literally, we called it skunk beer because, man, that's what it smelled like and tastes like. I don't know if it was because they left it sitting outside. It was, and then you could always tell when the privates were getting towards the end of the month before their paycheck because they were all drinking soju with Jolly Ranchers shoved in them to try to give them some sort of flavor. But I'm not a soju fan either. It tastes like Zima, if you remember that drink.
Oh my gosh, that's going way back. Yeah.
Tastes like chalk. Yeah, I mean, those are some good times. Drinking and telling jokes and stories, man, that's what us military guys, that's how we got by. Deployments are hours and hours of boredom with a few minutes of excitement, and you got to have something to pass those times.
For sure.
Stories. I remember we were in training and it was at night, and me and this other staff sergeant, we had this kid that was from Arkansas, and he would get mad all the time if we said that he was from Arkansas. And so we did this little bit where we act like we were the McCoys talking about the Hatfields. And we said that the whole story started because one of those Hatfields started messing with our daughter. And then this big old fight happened.
Right.
And the way it all ended was the sheriff came out there and we all agreed that y'all would stay on your Kansas and we will stay on our Kansas. And that's where the name of Arkansas came from. Man, he was so mad. But, it was like a 45-minute bit. People had their phones out recording. I wish I still had it. But that's what we did. That's how we passed time and got through some hard stuff. I don't know if you ever look at TikTok, but there's that TikTok about Single Shot Freddy, and it's got this younger soldier. He's an E4, and it portrays that there's a journalist there interviewing him. They're all ducked down into this bunker, and they said, "What are we doing?" He said, "Well, we're hiding right now." And he said, "Well, what's going on?" He said, "Well, there's Single Shot Freddy is out there." He said, "Well, what is Single Shot Freddy?" He said, "Well, we believe he's a blind Afghan man about 65 to 70 years old, and he likes to shoot at us." And the guy goes, "Well, how do you know he's blind?" He said, "Well, he hasn't hit nothing yet, but he's getting really close." And so those kind of stories, that type of sense of humor is where the veteran community is. That's how the name started. It was designed to be funny. And I feel like that's where podcasting should be. People should be able to come on, have a conversation and leave feeling better about themselves or about the situation. Whether you agreed or didn't agree, two people came together and even if they could just leave saying, we'll agree that we disagree, and that's another reason.
I think we need more of that, Donald, right now. Like there's a lot of disagreement out there to be sure, but I still just that act of sitting down and being civil.
Yep.
And trying to understand, why you feel this way, why you think this way. Those are monumental things I don't think we do enough of.
Yeah, I agree. Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to bring you up and let you tell a little bit about everybody, where they can find you. And I've had your website going down there.
Yeah, I see that. I appreciate that. Yeah, obviously, evergreenpodcast.com. People are more than welcome to check us out there. And we also have some other sites too, pitpassmotorsports.com, killerpodcast.com, which is more of horror and paranormal. So we keep on expanding, and we'd love to hear from everybody who's engaged in podcasts, want to know more. You may or may not be a fit for the network, but we talk to everybody. I mean, we want to spread the gospel on podcasting. And really, the staff will do anything they can to help you out, which is real important to me and real important to Joan, our founder. I mean, both of us really just want to help and, as many people as we can through their podcasting journey. So that's where they can find us.
All right. Well, I'm going to put you in the green room real quick and throw our exit out, and I'll be right with you. All right.
Rock and roll, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
You got it.
All right, man. So I've been looking forward to this episode for a while for several reasons. One, I don't know everything. And so I'm trying to help out some of these veterans and give them the opportunity to learn and take it to wherever they want, whether it just be to have fun or whether they want to be the next Joe Rogan. And so having guests like this and gaining some insight to where I can help them is an amazing opportunity. So I hope y'all got something out of this. If y'all want to learn more, or if you got that show that he's looking for, reach on down there to evergreenpodcast.com. Reach out to him. Like you said, they'll be glad to help you and maybe even partner with you. You never know. So you all take care, man. Be safe. Don't forget, don't let the day kick your ass. Kick its ass.